Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Today I am so excited to bring you guys this video, and I am doing makeup on someone else, and this time it actually is a client. We're doing a makeup trial for her, and I requested that we film this trial, and luckily she agreed. Shout out to Jocelyn, thank you so much for coming through. So if you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm so glad to have you. Please subscribe before we get into this video. So you guys, first up, I'm using the Refine and Protect primer from Sorbet. You guys know that I love this primer. It's perfect, it's nourishing, moisturizing, hydrating to the skin, and the perfect thing beneath your foundation. For foundation, I am using this Rimmel London 25-hour stay foundation. This was actually Jocelyn's foundation, and it was a perfect shade match. I first went in with a stippling brush and I applied it all over her face, and then I would change afterwards and I use a beauty sponge to make sure everything looks seamless. I've actually never had this issue of having streaky lines on my face from using a brush, but I always love to go in with a sponge afterwards to make sure everything looks beautiful and seamless. And that was just my technique for applying my base, just stippling on with the brush, and then I just pat it down and making sure everything looks beautiful and seamless and just goes into the skin beautifully with a wet beauty sponge. I actually liked this foundation. It was my first time using it on anyone. I've actually never used it on myself either, and I feel like it was such a beautiful finish. Afterwards, I went in with my Alila palette. So I went in with that on her forehead, on the highlights of her cheeks, and I also went in with that on her jawline. I stippled it on with the same brush that I was using for foundation, and I really love using this product because it is creamy, it is not harsh on the skin, it's very easy to blend, and it always complements everyone that I use it on. So it's the perfect contouring shade for me. Not to mention, it's a perfect product as well. Like, this is a professional makeup brand and it's really beautiful. I'm not sure where to find it if you guys are interested, but I will link their website. I'm not sure if you can actually walk into a store and buy it, but I'll make sure to link the website down below. So if you guys are looking for any of the products that I use on this video, make sure to check down below in the description box, as I will have everything listed. So I'm just going in here and blending everything out on her jawline, and I applied with a brush like I said earlier, but then I ended up using my beauty sponge to blend everything out because I felt like the brush wasn't doing a good enough job. But the sponge, it was just melting away beautifully and like blending seamlessly with her foundation shade. Going in with the beauty sponge, I dipped into that same shade for the contour and I applied it on her nose as a nose contour. This was not as tight as I would have liked it to be, but I still feel like it did a good job. I just applied it with that beauty sponge because the brush that I was using was quite thick and I didn't feel like it would do a great job of placing the product precisely where I wanted it to be placed. And after I applied it, I just left it to sit, and then I went in with concealer. For concealer, I used this 24-hour stay concealer from Maybelline. Oh, this is actually 24-hour Superstay concealer. It is actually the concealer version of the 24-hour Superstay foundation, and this is pretty light, so I don't like to use it on myself and any of the people that I do on my channel which are darker skinned. So I felt like it would be perfect for this particular video on this particular skin tone. I did feel like it was still a little bit too light though, but I used a little bit of a darker setting powder to sort of like make that a bit more neutral. That's actually a trick I can teach you guys. If you apply something on your face and you feel like it's too light or it's too dark, you can actually set it or apply any other product on top of it that is actually the opposite of what it looks like, so that it can sort of match each other. Anyway, I blended that with a beauty sponge, and then afterwards I went in with the smooth stippling brush. I love this brush. It's very handy dandy. I use it for blending in like creases or any places that are hidden. It's small enough to get into those places, and it still does a good enough job as any other stippling brush. And then for setting, I use my powder to you powder from Sorbet. This is a loose powder and it's in the shade Light. This powder is a bit too dark for her, but like I said earlier, since the concealer I felt like it was a bit too light, I used this powder, and perfectly it brought in that shade into something much more like darker. It wasn't so bright anymore underneath her eyes, which is exactly the effect I was looking for. So I just used a little bit of that powder underneath her eyes. I also used that stippling brush on her eyelid, and I just blended out any creases, and then I use the same powder to set her eyelids before I went in with eyeshadow. So now, since I was prepping the face for doing eyeshadow, I took a sponge and I just packed on this shade. This is actually a shade from my Alila palette. It's a banana yellow shade, and I really love it for the under eyes, even though it's part of an eyeshadow palette. So I took that sponge, dipped it into the shade, and patted it underneath her eyes, so that any fallout that comes from the eyeshadow would fall on the powder and not on her skin and ruin my base. For eyeshadow, I went in with this shade. This is a pink shade from the 24 Grand Glam palette from Morphe, and I wanted to concentrate this shade on the outer part of her eye, and then I brought it in towards the inner corner of her eye, but making sure to blow it out towards the brows. So that's what I'm doing over here, and I'm using a very tapered blending brush because I wanted this shade to be focused mostly on the crease. So I just blended it out until I was happy with the way it looks, making sure to really blow it out on the inner corner towards the brow. And then over here I am taking a clean blending brush, and I am making sure that there aren't any harsh lines, and I am just blending out that shadow on the edges so that it can be beautifully blown out and just give a really seamless, beautiful look on the eyeshadow. And then next up, I go in with this shade. This is from my MorphexJaclyn Hill palette, and I went in with the shade Hustle. This is a beautiful shimmer shade. I wanted something that's gonna give off like a sparkly look and not as pink initially. I also applied it with my finger because I felt like it was working better with the finger in terms of the payoff. And then I took that same banana yellow shade that I had used underneath her eyes, and I applied it on the inner corner of her eye because I wanted it to be really bright. After I had applied that matte shade, I went in with the shade Enlighten from the MorphexJaclyn Hill palette. This shade is really white, but it also gives off a very sparkly finish. I make sure to drag that towards the middle part of the eye and making sure everything blends in seamlessly with each other. And afterwards I took my brush, the one that I use for the pink shadow, and I made sure that everything looks beautiful and seamless and blended it together, and I really liked the way that looked. Then I took my small stippling brush and I used it to blend out that contour on her nose, which had been sitting for some time now. Then I took that same concealer that I used underneath her eyes and I applied it on the bridge of her nose to highlight that part of her nose. And I took that same brush that I was using to stipple the sides of her nose, and I make sure that everything looks beautiful and seamless. You guys, I always say this, makeup is all about blending. That's all you have to do. You just need to blend and blend until you're happy with how things look. So that's what I'm doing over there. And I also went in with my beauty sponge. A beauty sponge is incredible for making sure there aren't any harsh lines and blending everything back in together. So now back to the eyes, I took my gel liner from L.A Girl. This is in the shade black, and I just use that to do a wing. I find it to be so much easier to use a gel liner as opposed to using a liquid liner, because with gel I feel like you have so much more control. Even if you make you move out of the way, it's not automatic that you're going to mess up your eye. Whereas with a liquid liner, if you make one wrong move, then it's over. So I just used that to do like a little bit of a wing liner. I didn't want anything too crazy. I just brought that towards her inner eye as well. And then I went in with bronzer. For bronzer, I use this Essence bronzer. This one is known as the Club Matte Bronzing Powder. I use it around her face, on her forehead, and around her jawline, as well as down her neck. This bronzer's payoff is not incredible, but on me I felt like it was actually undetectable, and on Jaclyn I felt like it was much easier to see. So I really loved it for her, and I applied it all over her face. And she also told me that she likes bronzer more than she likes blush. Then now I am taking a clean brush. I'm just blending away all the powder that I had used underneath her eyes, and now I am setting her smile lines with my beauty sponge, and I set the rest of her face using that beauty sponge. I just dipped it into a translucent shade of the Powder to You powder, and then using a clean brush I blended all of that away, making sure there isn't any excess powder on her face that I don't want to be there. And then I took an angled brush and I dipped into that Essence bronzer again, and I just used that to define her nose, like the nose contour. Now for the brows. With brows, I went in with the Take a Brow Pocket Brow Bar from Sorbet, and I just used the darkest shade from that palette, and her brows were so nicely shaped, so I really didn't have to do much. I just tried to fill in spots which I felt like were a bit bald in between, not really bald but sparse. Yes, I just filled in those parts, and it was actually quite quick. And afterwards I used my Eco Gel, which is actually meant for hair, but I use that so many times, like so often, on people's brows, and it does a really great job of pulling up your brow hairs and making them stay in place the whole day. So if you don't have a brow gel and you have the Eco Gel, you can certainly use that, because it's going to do right by you. It's going to do the exact same thing that you'd need your brow gel to do. And then for blush, I used this blush from Essence. This was actually one of her products as well. This is the blush from Essence. I think it's in the shade 80 because it's a beautiful pink shade. But she didn't want a lot of blush, so we really went minimalistic. And then afterwards, I applied highlighter on her using the Mega Glow highlighter from Wet n Wild. And now for lips, I first went in with a lip liner. This lip liner is from Essence. Not sure what the shade name is, but it will be listed down below. And then I went in with this liquid lip from Sorbet, and to top off the lip I used this lip gloss from Essence. You guys know that I love this lip gloss. I'm not sure what the shade name is, but once again it will be listed down. And that was it for the makeup look. Thank you so much you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really liked this makeup look. It's beautiful, it's pretty, it's pink, it's flirty, and I really feel like it complements her beautiful face so well. If you're not subscribed yet, I'm going to remind you guys, please subscribe before you leave the channel. And if you like the video, please give it a big thumbs up. Thank you so much you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.